I've just been at an event in Parliament, and I'm joined by Kat Hobbs of We Own It, who's going to explain to us exactly what we've been doing here.
Hi, Christian, and thank you for being here. So we're at Parliament today. We Own It. The We Own It team is here with experts, including obviously Christian Wolmar and other campaigners, and I'll list those. We've got Emily from the Association of British Commuters. We've got Ellie from Bring Back British Rail. We've got Dr. Grace Brown, who is a bit of an expert on rolling stock, and we've got Jonathan Tyler, who is an expert on timetabling. And of course Christian, and we're all here to talk about the Railways Bill.
And you've been lobbying MPs here. You've been having quite a steady stream of MPs to talk to.
Yeah, that's right. So we asked We Own It supporters to email their MPs and say, please come to this event in Parliament. Come and hear from these experts about how we make public ownership of the railway really successful.
So what are your precise demands? What are you actually asking for? Because, Great British Railways is happening. The bill, as I understand it, will definitely be tabled sometime in the autumn. It will give quite strong powers to Great British Railways. So what are the things that you're really trying to press for here?
So we think public ownership is a good idea. So do most people. So do most voters, actually, across all political parties support public ownership. And we think it's also important to think about how do you make public ownership really successful? Because just bringing the rail franchises into public hands as they come up for renewal without a bigger vision, a bigger plan, and thinking about the other policies that need to be in place is really politically risky for the government. It could go really badly wrong, and I think we're already starting to see some of the potential fallout from that. So what we're saying is, look, this is a really historic opportunity that the government's got right now. We're seeing we're really grateful, we're really pleased that they're ending this 30 years of rail privatisation, bringing franchises into public ownership. That is great. That's a real achievement. It's the right thing. But that by itself is not going to automatically lead to a really high quality, tip-top, fantastic railway that passengers are really keen to use.
Okay, so can you be a bit more specific? Yes. That's very general. Yeah. So give us some examples of where you think GBR might be failing and what you'd like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're trying to do here is start a kind of national conversation, really, to say, what do campaigners and experts want to do? So we've got a document called Passengers Not Profit, a vision for the Railways Bill. We've got contributions in that document from yourself, Christian, and from these other experts that I mentioned. And the policies that we are calling for are, we want the rolling stock to be publicly owned. Right now, as I'm sure you've covered before, but the rolling stock companies are the most profitable bit of the railway, and the government has no plans to take them into public ownership, which means effectively we don't own our own trains.
But that would cost an enormous amount of money to buy them back.
Well, what we're saying is, on the government set up Great British Energy, why not set up something like Great British Trains and have a plan for, as trains are decommissioned, have a plan for the new trains to be publicly owned.
So you wouldn't be suggesting buying up the existing stock?
We think they should look at what to do about it. So, and Scotland's already doing this a bit. So Dr. Grace Brown wrote a report which I think was arranged by ASLEF for the Scottish Government, saying what's the waste here? What's the money that could be reinvested back into making better services from rolling stock, from those trains? And so the Scottish Government is looking at their options. And we think Westminster should be doing the same. What are the options? Maybe buying them out. I mean, we actually think, there's a bit of a blind spot with the government where actually, if you buy an asset, and if that asset is profitable, then that asset comes to you. That is a good thing, and we shouldn't count that as being a cost that we can't afford. But at the same time, there's different ways of doing it, and they should be planning for it. We shouldn't continue this rolling stock rip-off ever-endingly into the future.
Okay, so that's rolling stock. What are the other aspects you're particularly focused on?
So another important one is the passenger voice. So what we're saying is, if you think about workers, they have unions to defend their interests, but who do passengers have? If you're upset with the new publicly owned railway, or if you've got ideas to improve it, how do you get your voice heard? What's the mechanism? Because, rail is a natural monopoly. That's part of why it's been not working in private hands. But we actually need accountability to be built into the system. So what we're saying is, turn Transport Focus into a democratically accountable body. When you buy your ticket, you get to vote for your representatives, and then they sit on the board or the relevant boards of Great British Railways to actually feed in that passenger perspective. Because, that just isn't there right now, and it needs to be built in so that our voice can be heard. And so you've got a constituency of people saying, rail is really important. Invest in rail. Every pound invested in rail produces £2.50 in economic benefits. Passengers pushing for that helps to get it over the line politically.
So basically that one is about democratising Transport Focus and changing its structure.
That's our proposal. And we think, if you think about boards that hold companies accountable, so, public ownership, it doesn't mean the minister's just in charge from a department somewhere. As you talk about, you have professionals running the railway, that's the way to do it. But who holds those professionals accountable? What we're saying is public ownership should mean the public is represented in that. So you have passengers, you have workers, and you also have other civil society groups who are represented in a board that is holding the company accountable for delivering for those groups and the broad public.
Okay, so that's rolling stock and passengers. What other aspects are you campaigning on?
So I think the other main aspect is around competition law and open access. And so, as you know, what we've seen with the railway franchises coming to public hands is that there's been a lot of almost aggressive open access applications from the private sector who are desperate to cling on to their profits. But our view is you don't actually get the benefits of public ownership if you carry on prioritising competition law. What you need to do is prioritise economic, social, environmental benefit, accessibility, all of that stuff. Run the railway for the benefit of passengers, plan it for the benefit of passengers, plan the timetable for our benefit. And you can also have cross-subsidy, where the more profitable routes can fund to socially necessary services. That's an efficient way to run a network, planning it in that way, and you don't get that if you have a total hodgepodge of private and public. That's really a messy way to do it. The government should have a vision and deliver that vision.
Why do you think that can't be done partly by, say, open access operators?
Well, our understanding is open access operators are effectively leeching off the system. They don't pay for a lot of the costs that the other operators do. So they don't pay as much for depots, for training staff. So effectively, they are creaming off the profits. And that's, our argument that we own it is that is what private companies do. And that's a logical thing to do if you can get away with it. Working for your private shareholders, you cherry pick the most profitable bits of any public service, you run those bits, and then you say, look, we're doing a really good job. Okay, but you're cherry picking. If you allow cherry picking in a service, that's a messy, inefficient service. What you want to do is run it as a public service, get professionals involved in collaborating with each other, because collaboration is a key benefit. Don't pretend that we can have competition and have public ownership at the same time. They're two different models.
Does that apply to ticket retailing as well? Do you think that ought to be controlled entirely by GBR?
Yes, it does. And I think, the government could look at creating a really fantastic ticket retailer, copying best practice from other countries, so that passengers have a really brilliant option that they know they can rely on, and they know it's not creaming profits out of the system. And, they could potentially look at buying out Trainline, the UK operations, but they don't have to. They could just create something really, really good. But now is the time to be thinking about what that looks like. You
don't think that people like Trainline have stimulated more people to use the trains?
I think Trainline is a decent service, and I also think it's extracting quite a lot of profit. I think there's this idea that the only way we can possibly have any innovation is if we have the private sector involved. That's just not true, and that's a big part of why we why we were really very happy to have you here today, Christian, to say, look, innovation happens in the public sector. What you do is you have professionals, you give them freedom to experiment, to innovate, to look at what can be done commercially, to run things for passengers. You also have the passenger accountability built in. use the best practice from other countries, like Germany, like France, see what's being done well in Europe and around the world, and build on that. But I think, let's actually recognise that the public sector can innovate. And the government is actually doing a bit of that. There was an announcement this week about work they were doing with Innovate UK, which is a public sector agency. Let's recognise that humans everywhere actually have ingenious ideas, good ways forward, and let's free up the public sector to make sure it can be innovative, but for public benefit.
Well, that's a great place to end it, Kat. Thank you very much for that, and good luck with your campaign.
Thank you so much, Christian.